Hello everyone, welcome. This is the FX Masters program, lesson 2. Right into it. So I was thinking about it after I finished recording the last lesson, and what I think it will be most effective and probably a little bit more fun for you guys, um, taking into consideration that you already have access to the FX Power User program, is that instead of me going by, covering topics from each level in order, just like this, following going from Maya Dynamics 1 to 2 to, getting all the way down. I think will be more fun is if I just take concepts from Maya, from each level, all right, and start mixing things up without getting ahead of ahead of the curve, let's say, without going further into things that you don't know already. So what I'm thinking is, now that we have talked, for example, we have talked about particle emission, and we started getting into particle fields, right? Um, Instead of me continuing covering topics little by little from level 1, then why don't we just start talking about the prototyping course and try to use what we learned so far, okay, and apply it to some of these things that we're going to do here. So what I mean by this is that instead of me labeling each lesson from, for example, Maya FX Power User Program 2017, Maya 1, Week 1, which is very structured, just the way it used to be back here, I'm thinking better. Let's just name it FX Masters Program Lesson 1, Lesson 2, Lesson 3, and so on. And then I'm going to start doing my best to try to incorporate as soon as possible everything that we're learning from the basic stuff into the more complicated stuff and the prototyping and avatar effects. The amount of hours will be the same. Just it will take me probably a little bit longer to cover some of the things. Instead of doing 40 hours on this part, who knows, we might be adding this 40 to those 60 or 80 from this one. So don't worry about it. Don't. What I'm trying to say is that use the structure on the website as a game plan, as a list of topics in general. But let me arrange it in a more interesting way so you guys don't get bored. I'm thinking that because if you're already seeing the FX Power User program, and then you feel like you're gonna have to wait to like cover everything to start getting into the new things, and that's not the case. So let me go ahead and start mixing things up. So with that in mind, I will go ahead and start talking about the prototyping topics, some of them. If you haven't seen the BBC Planet Earth series, obviously you should get into it, not only for the sake of this course, but also for mental reference for later. There's so many different situations in the big documentary that is definitely a good one to watch. So get on it. I have it on Blu-ray at home, which is an awesome thing to watch. But that was back in the day before Netflix and all that. I know now for a fact that Netflix has it, and I don't know if you live in England or you have BBC channel, probably you might catch it every now and then. But try to get your hands on it somehow. I do have also a digital version here, which I will keep it around just for reference every now and then. Just give me one sec. There we go. So I'm gonna start, jumping back and forth from this video to the class, and then we'll see it together. But take a look at the documentary because it's quite nice. All right, so that's clear out of the way. I'm gonna minimize this. The first episode of the BBC Planet Earth documentary is kind of a summary of everything that's coming. It is an hour and a half long, and you will probably see there most of the things that we're going to be talking about. Then each episode is an in-depth view of that topic. So it's divided in like mountains and open water and whatever, jungles and things like that. So check it out because it's quite nice. So the first effect, based on what we learned so far in the course, based on where we are, right at the beginning, doesn't mean that we cannot use what we learned to start recreating some of these things. For example, this big flock of birds. They're not, why we can jump on it right away because they don't have any particular interesting motion. They're just going from point A to point B in a straight line. But we can start talking about particle distribution, and we can start, playing a little bit with this, and then we'll start jumping into more complicated stuff. As you can see, there's this giant migration of birds. On the narration, he explains the number of birds and all that, and that's, I think, some of the key points of the effects prototyping. So to remind you, the effects prototyping course, okay, the purpose of this part, or every lesson that is mentioning a prototyping topic, is it's meant to be for you guys to work faster, come up with tools to develop simple tools, simple. I don't want any complicated Python scripting and all that. Don't get into that. Don't worry about it yet. That's for later. That's a choice that you're going to make later on if you want to go that path or not. But for now, I want simple little tools that you will be able to recreate very quickly and mock up situations based on what your client or your director or your boss or even yourself, are trying to come up with ideas. There's nothing easy. That's why the pre-visualization was invented, right? To come up with a way to quickly get ideas out of your head into the screen and test them and see if they work. Because you'll be amazed when we start doing things in the computer here, how confusing it might get, or how in your mind you might think there is one way, and the reality tells you that, and then when you put it in the computer, it doesn't work. Particularly with this kind of situations like this one, where the number of birds, for example, then the guy narrating this thing might tell you, I don't know how many millions of birds are here. We'll probably put the audio now and see what he says. But then once you start testing that and you put the exact number in the computer, it might not look right. It might not be enough, or it might be too much. So the idea of this course is for you to come up with ways to quickly iterate, to give versions, to give options to your client, and try to come up with the fastest, easiest way to tackle a particular effect. This is about speed. It's about speed. It's about economy. Those things are related. They're tied up together, right? Time is money, at least in effects and in many situations, right? So the faster you can work it, the faster you can tweak it, the better. There's nothing a director or a client enjoys the most than being able to sit with the artist and in real time tweak things and get his ideas out. That annoying and counterproductive chain of command that some companies have is what ruins them at the end. To get a play blast or a piece of information or a simple question from the artist who's actually doing the work, all the way to the director and then the person who makes the final decision, it takes forever in some of the companies. There's so many layers, and you have to please so many people, and versions get lost, and then the client, might not be expressing himself correctly. So with the effects prototyping course, I want you guys to be able to come up with ideas, and think always like that. If I have the guy sitting next to me, and he's going to be changing things, parameters, and options and conditions, you try to anticipate that. And prepare yourself, for, like I said, a little simple tool, but that has so much flexibility that he will be able to sit with you and tell you whatever he wants. And if you can make it with him in real time, trust me, you will be climbing steps really quickly in that company, or you'll be saving a lot of money if it's your company. So that's my point with this course. I think it's a very interesting way. People tend to overcomplicate things in effects. People tend to think that effects are only available and useful for big productions and big shots and things like that. And you realize that in some situations it's faster than animation, it's faster than modeling, it's faster than hand placing things. So we shouldn't misuse effects in either end of the idea, right? You shouldn't overuse them, but you shouldn't underestimate it as well. I think hopefully I made my point clear with that. As always, write down your questions as you're watching these videos. Write them down, and I'm talking to the guys who are already signed up and already watching these things. You guys have a big responsibility for the rest of the watchers later on, and I say this because your questions, your insights, your experiments are going to be implemented and incorporated into the next videos and the next recordings. So the better your questions, or the better your samples, or the better your challenges, the better this course is going to be. So I'm counting on you. All right, so let's get on it. As you can see, well, there again, there's this big migration of birds. I don't know what else is coming in this video. There you go. So it goes from pole to pole. We'll be covering all these things. But for now, I want to focus first on these little guys. Let me just go back a little bit. There we go. Here's the shot. Just let it run a little. There we go. Simple. Perfect. Okay, so for prototyping, first thing you need to know. Okay, well, first thing you need to know. Let's just don't make this class as me telling you what to do exactly. So let's just think together. Let's assume things together. First thing, if I want to have a tool to represent this shot right here, what are the things that the director might change? That's the first thing you should be thinking, and pretty much in every shot. But let's just focus on this part of about being effective and being economical and proactive. So what could he change? Well, he could change the amount of birds. He might change the direction. He might change probably, and I'm not reading all the list. I'm just thinking, right? When they present a shot to me in production, let's say that this is the first time, even if it's just by reading it on a script, or if he's just telling me what he has in mind, or if he's showing me a picture of this thing on from a book or something, and he goes ahead and says, "Okay, Louis, you're going to be working now on this BBC thing that is coming out. This is a documentary about planet Earth." And the first thing I want you to do is we're going to have to do this big migration of seagulls or whatever this bird is, and I want you to start testing. The data says, or the book or whatever, the encyclopedia says that this migration will have probably, I don't know, 200,000 birds that go from whatever, the North Pole to the South Pole, or to warmer areas or anything, I don't care, every year, and they fly as a big group, and they let me just close my notifications. Well, don't worry about that right now. Let me just quickly think. Well, don't worry about it. It's okay. So yeah, it's a big migration. They fly as a big group. There's no particular behavior as far as they don't group. They don't have like subgroups, or they just kind of go together. So, okay, as they say those things, what my brain is thinking, okay, well, based on the picture that he showed me, let's say that this video is not a video, but is a picture from a book, and I see this, I start thinking, well, okay, this guy is going to change the number of birds because we don't know for a fact that that's true, that there's 200 or 300,000. We just need to make it look good on the screen. That's our purpose. This has to work on the screen. I don't care the amount of the number of birds or anything like it. So that's the first thing I'm thinking. I'm thinking, well, this guy might change the speed of what they fly from screen right to screen left, because again, it might be physically correct and might have a certain particular speed, but if it doesn't work on the shot, he's going to change the speed. So I need to keep an eye on that. I need to keep an eye on distribution. Right now it seems pretty uniform. But what if he wants me to separate them in groups, or to have gaps in between? Okay? Again, think always, and I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but try to think always the worst possible scenario. And then you'll be prepared, and nothing will disappoint you. And like I said, I don't mean this in a terrible way. No, I'm not saying that every shot that you get is terrible. Not at all. But I'm just thinking, well, okay, this guy might change that. But he says in the book, doesn't matter. He will probably change it, and probabilities are that if he has an option to change it, he will change it. So there we go. So distribution, amount of birds, speed of where they fly, the size of the group itself. If you keep zooming out, then it does have an edge, and obviously it does have an end. But I might not be able to work around some sort of shape that he might want, as well as for the overall group. So it's a combination of. I don't have this in QuickTime, so it's going to be annoying to scroll. Just try one more time. Okay, there we go. So it's just a matter of getting a shape for the overall, let's say, it's a flock, probably, I think is the right word. It's not a hurt, but hey, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't care. So you want an overall shape for the whole group, and also you want to be able to have probably subgroups inside that big mess. Um, Given that this is a pre-visualization stage, you're bidding on this project. I'm not gonna worry about the wings flapping, right? Because that's not the thing. You want to be able to deliver. These are kind of things that you will be able to deliver in minutes. Minutes, just a simple, quick mock-up that he can put into his cut of the thing, and then see if it works and the shot is gonna work, or if he's gonna go to Africa and film this thing, or if he's gonna do it in effects. Who knows? So don't worry about the flapping of the wings. Well, that's being dealt later. The purpose of this shot, remember, of this course, of this portion of the course, is prototyping, speed and economy. That's it. So basically, that's those are the main aspects of this. Probably, I will also think, while they're talking to me, I will also think of the situation where, what if the camera moves around and you're not looking at it from the top always, but if the camera starts to go fly down, I'm assuming this is a helicopter or something that is filming this, the camera starts to move down, will this thing have a height? I don't think they fly all at the same height perfectly. So I also have to think of that. So it's more of a three-dimensional, flock or whatever, a group of birds. So that's basically when they're talking to me, my brain is all over there doing those things and think, okay, well, I need to be able to cater for this guy and make sure that he wants to change all those things at once, and then I'll be able to do it right away without breaking what I already have. Simplify. I don't need expressions. Try to make direct connections. All those things, have to always be in your mind. And also thinking, okay, if they hire me for this project, and I'm going to be working on this planet Earth, and this planet Earth, I know that it's going to have rain, and it's going to have herds of animals on the ground, and who knows what else, and all sorts of stuff. Let me try to come up with my thing or my tool to work on this shot and see if I can tweak a couple of things and make it work for something else, so I don't have to start creating a new setup for every shot that I get. That is the key, again, of this course. Okay, recycling, reusing things, reusing concepts, and working quickly. So perfect. We have that image. Keep it in your mind. All right, so there is a simple thing. All right, so given that information that I gave you on the previous lesson, I think we're ready to work. And I will be adding a couple of more things here and there, but nothing special. Let me just see why my Maya is kind of weird. It's moving a bit slower. Let me just check 1 second. My system. Everything is fine. Yeah, I'm fine. All right, I don't know why it's doing that. The FTP, well, I uploaded things last week. You already have them. I'm going to close it. Just want to keep things simple on my end. All right, cool. We'll see. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and work. I'm going to be using, for the emission, I'm going to stick to a surface. Now, I'm going to go to my effects menu, as always, and I'm going to create a piece of geometry. I like to work with polygons. They're always better. And I think, even though, then you have to make a decision right now. Do I want to make it square? Do I want to make a sphere? Or what of these shapes, which one of these shapes is going to be the most suitable for what I want to do? Taking into consideration that what I said before about the height of the group and the overall shape, that it has to be irregular and all. So you might think, well, but if I do a simple plane, will the thing come up square always, or a rectangular shape? No. So don't worry about it, because I'm going to show you a way not to do that. So I tend to use 9 out of 10 times. I tend to use a plane. Start with this. So here we go. I don't need the grid for now. I'm going to scale it up a little, and this is what I'm going to be using. So given the information from last week, you already know, very simple, how to put particles on this. So I'm not going to re-explain that to you. Emit from object. This is a surface, and hit create. As you may expect, particles are being born. and particles are moving up. You already know why. If you don't, go to the previous lesson. So what I need in this one is, you don't see the birds doing that. You see those birds pretty much moving from left to right. So I need to get rid of the particle speed that this emitter is giving me. Get rid of that. And let's just very quickly have a whole bunch of little birds. Let's say that I pause my timeline right there. Okay, so let me just always jump back to this. For the sake of testing, okay, I'm going to make myself a camera. So I'm going to create a camera. I'm going to look through it. And I'm going to focus on this. And we know that Planet Earth is a show shot on HD at least, so full HD. There we go. And also, there is, let me just quickly look here. 1 second, because they move a couple of things, but there we go. Resolution gate. That's not the resolution that I want. I want full HD 1080. There we go. Okay, so basically this is the resolution of the show itself, and that pretty much anything that is being made right now. And soon we'll be talking in terms of 4K or whatever because of those super cool Ultra HD TVs. But for now, we're still in the clear with that. So we know that this is pretty much the size of the screen space that I'm going to be working with. Let's call this the picture from the book that my client sent me because he hasn't shot anything. He doesn't have a previs. This is what I can see. So the screen is completely full of birds. All right, no problem. So let's go ahead and tweak this. Something to mention is that I am not at this stage. Okay, I am not doing I'm not working with my client. Let's say that my client's not next to me right now. This is the first thing they told me, and I'm sitting in my computer for a few minutes. I told him, go ahead, finish your meeting, talk to the other guys, have a coffee, and then meet me at my desk, and I will have something ready for you. And obviously, I'm explaining to you, so I have to go a little bit slower. So what I'll do is I'll come up with something quickly, and then we'll quickly with you, and then we'll go ahead and do a little bit of a quick setup and be able to edit it, expecting my client to sit with me. So for now, I need to say, okay, well, this is the camera, this is the picture that he showed me, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and make sure that I have enough. I'm going to extend this thing, not too much, because the camera, you can see on the shot that the camera will move from, it will pan a little bit. It's not going to be rotating or doing anything crazy. So the more geometry that you have outside, the worse it's going to be. The more birds you're going to be, losing or wasting. So I'm pretty much, I'm fine within my boundaries right here. So because I need more birds, I don't need to see this anymore. I need more of them. So let me rewind and play again. And here they come. Perfect. Very simple. All right. So the book, when I'm reading the book and what my client told me, you know what, Luis, this researcher said that there is 300,000 birds, okay, on this migration. So, okay, that's the first thing you need to test. Well, let's see what 300,000 points will look in this. Because at the end of the day, if you're honest, what that thing looks is just points. I don't think there's much of a difference between this and this. And even though, hell, we can even find a picture of some sort of aerial view of a lake or something, and put them on top, and you'll see that it's just, at the moment, they just look like points. So let's just see what 300,000 points will look like. How do I know for sure that I have 300,000 points? Or how do I get there quickly? Because that's another thing. You don't see the birds being born one at a time. They're just already there, and they're moving. So how do I solve that situation? I don't want my client to sit here and wait with me while 300,000 points come to the screen. Remember that if you select the particles and you go to Control A for the attributes, you will see the particle count, the amount of points that I have on my scene right now is 2,304. If I want to sit with this guy, and he's gonna get annoyed, he's gonna leave. That's not what I want. I want to get the exact number that he said very quickly, and that is extremely simple. The particle system here has an option where it says maximum count or max count. The max count is what the name tells you. Is the maximum number of particles that this system will hold. When you set it to -1, it is open. You can have as many particles as you want. But let's say that the guy tells you, or let's just be even more, let's go a little bit more out there. Let's say that this book that we're reading, this reference that he showed me, says that this system, this migration has 293,000 birds. Okay, all right. So we put 293,000. This system will only hold that amount of particles. So how do we get there quickly? Because we're not gonna wait 10 minutes to get there. Not a problem. Once you set it to 293,000 as your maximum count, right? You can take your emitter rate and just bump it. And because you already know that these are particles per second, you know exactly how long it's gonna take you to get there. So if I put a rate of 293,000, I know it's gonna take me 1 second. It's going to take me 24 frames. Okay, I'm going to save my scene just to begin. So this is going to be the effects. What I like to do is, let me just think. I'm going to name them. Let's just name it right away. Effects power user. Effects. It's not power user. All right. Okay. Let me just come up with a name. So this is going to be the effects master. Lesson 2. That's just for me to be able to work better here. Why do I save it ahead of time? Just in case, man. Just in case, because and I'm doing it so you guys do it as well. You haven't seen on your screen this amount of points. I don't know, your computer might hold a lot more, a lot less, and that's fine. But we don't know at this particular time. So if you have done a couple of things you don't want to miss or you want to lose, then save it just in case when you hit play. And don't hit play probably, just go 1 frame. What I'm trying to say by this is that the book might say something, but once you put that amount of points on the screen, like I said before, it could be too much or it could be too little. We don't know yet. So in 1 frame we have 12,000 birds. Let's keep going. Double that, triple. We're at 48,000 birds, 61, 73, 85,000. So for what I can see right here, we have a higher density. I'm not going to say we have more because obviously I can't count that. I don't know what that is. But we have a higher density of points in my screen than in here. And we did that with only 85,000 points. A couple of things could happen here. You might present this to your client and then he will say, well, you know what, that's great, looks fine. That's a rational person, as long as he looks good. Some other dumbass might come and say, you know what, Luis, book says 293,000, that's what I want, and why are you giving me less? So you say, well, all right, fine. If you need to continue, then probably if I keep going, this is going to become a green screen completely. Keep going. This is ridiculous. I'm at 183,000. So I'm going to give him what he wants. There we go. There we go. 293,000 points. And that's what it looks like on the screen. He will see what he does with that. If he wants to have the exact number because this is, I don't know, a particular reason, he thinks someone's going to count them, then you won't be able to, you're not going to get away with this camera. You're going to have to zoom out or something. Zoom in. You see? So you can play with this a little bit. But what you know for sure is that the number of points is exactly what the book tells you or your client tells you. 293,000. In all honesty, it's nothing for the computer. That shouldn't be a problem. You think of millions and start to worry about. So 293,000 points is nothing. If you hit play right now, the scene will just continue. I get a very nice display, 44 frames a second, so almost twice as fast as real time. So that's perfect. And no other particles have been emitted. The particle emitter is still on, okay, it's still active, but because I told the particle system not to take any more than 293,000, then he's just not emitting anything. If for some reason you start killing particles, new particles will be born to compensate for them. So keep that in mind. But for now, as far as this goes, then it's fine. All right, cool. So I have that. So perfect. So he can come in and say, you know what, guy, boss, or whatever. There is your 293,000 birds, and the camera you gave me, it looks like this. So I think it's too dense. So that's his problem, to deal with the camera and deal with an animator for the camera. You tell, okay, well that's what you want. Oh, you know what, man? Yeah, you're right. I think 293,000 is too much. I don't know. Let's do 60%. So, you might want. It's not that hard to do, but I'm just gonna keep it outside here just for the hell of it. You want? Let's just do. I don't know, because hell, man, they do this. I've seen it many times. I don't know. Let's do 70, 73%. You want 73%? No worries. 293 multiplied by 0.73. All right, so you want 213,890. He goes away. Let's say he said, oh, you know what? I want 73%. Oh, fuck. He goes away. All right, great. So you go ahead and do this. What I'm doing is, you know that it's 213,890. So you put your number, 213,890. Right? You rewind. You hit play. There you go. He comes back. Right? So there you go. There's your 73%. Are you sure it's really 73%? Are you sure that's the number? Are you sure they're right now, man? I don't think it looks the same. That's what he will tell you. Trust me, he will tell you that. You know what? Man, there's 213,890 particles. It is exactly 73%. So why don't you come up with a real number that you want? I don't know. Well, let's do half of that. All right, let's do half of that. 106,945. You tell him not to go away. You prove it in front of him, right? So it's 106,945, I think. Okay, so let's go ahead and rewind. Hit play. There's your half. Holy shit, he will say, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you don't need 293,000 birds to look good. There we go. Now you prove a point. But you see, you need to be able to work quickly. So with this number, max count, that's going to be very key for this particular effect, for this particular shot. That's going to tell you the exact amount of agents. Let's just use a more sophisticated work of lingo of this work. 106,000 agents. But this is going to tell you exactly how you're going to have on the screen. And you can be very specific. You can tell you 89.3%, and you can come up with a particular exact number. And in my opinion, when you're doing these kind of shots and you're bidding and you're doing these pre-visualizations, you need to convince them and you need to put your client into the right line and the right mindset that with this kind of precision, he can get his ideas out. So it's not up to you, the artist, okay, each one of you watching this video, doing these shots, it's not up to you to come up with that number if he's being so specific. So with this, you prove a point. And you know what, man? Make up your mind, or don't worry. It doesn't have to be a negative situation, like I said. But I'm telling you is, you know what? You can tell me any number you want. You can tell me any percentage of birds, and I will get it for you on real time, because it's that simple. Cool. So keep that attribute is going to be very important for our setup. So backing up to what we talked at the beginning, what are the things that I want to be tweaking, okay, on this setup? Then it's going to be, we said about the amount of birds, so we got that covered right here. We said the size of the system itself. So here we go. That's going to be dictated by this plane. We talked about the speed of where they travel from one point to the other. And there's a couple of ways to do that. We saw one last week that it was, fairly simple. Do you remember the tangent speed? And again, if you look at the video, they're just moving in a straight line. I mean, not a perfectly straight line, but there's so many of them that it's hard to tell. It's more of an overall feeling of the whole group. They're going straight. There's of course little variations here and there, but there's something very, very minuscule. See? So that's fine. So, the tangent speed could be something, at least for a pre-visualization stage. A quick attribute then is that. You set it to 1. You hit rewind. You hit play. And what happens? Why they're not moving is simple. Remember that I took away the speed? So the speed multiplies by these attributes. So I'm going to put my speed back to 1 just to see what it feels like, what it 1 is, what it means. I'm going to take the normal speed and I'm going to get it to 0 because I don't want it to move up. Perfect. And let's see what that does. Okay, so you can see, well, tangent speed is not really what I want, right? If I look back to my camera. A quick tip, if you want to get your camera stuck there, you don't want to move it by accident, just select it and key some of the channels, at least the translations and rotations. So that way it will stay there. There's no way for you to move it. Let's see what that looks like through my shot camera. It's just noise. It looks like a TV broke, a broken TV. That's not what I want. It is quite nice as a little bit of work. I mean, as a little bit of motion, but it's, just to give it a little bit of random movement. But it's not going to give me the left to right that I want. And that's fine. I just wanted to prove a point with this. What I do want is a little force, just a simple force field. I'm going to grab my particles. I'm going to go ahead and go to the fields section, and I'm going to create again my uniform field. That's one of my favorite fields, and well, it's not like I have a favorite field, but it's one of the most used fields. It's simple. Just move things in a straight line where you tell it to. That's pretty good. Later, I will tell you another cool thing about this, but let's save it for later. I'm going to get the attenuation to 0 so it works everywhere, remember? And I'm going to choose my direction. So right now, you can see the x-axis is pointing into this area, so I'm going to go into the negative x. And it depends. If you want them to move, if I put it to negative x only, then you get supersonic birds. But you can see where they're going in this direction. The video showed me a little bit of an incline in that direction. You try to be, as close as possible to the reference. So all you need to do is add a little bit of Z into that field. So let's just say 0.1. Right? So it's pushing into the X direction, which is going that way, and a little bit of Z, so just kind of knock him into this area. It's a bit not enough. Let's just put 0.25. Try to make big changes when you make changes on things like this. So don't go from 0.1 to 0.11, 0.12, 0.13 because it's going to take you forever. So try to double it or more and then start finding your sweet spot in there. Perfect. As far as the direction goes, I think that's good. So now my magnitudes are way too big. But remember also something. These particles have a conserve of 1, meaning that they are in outer space with no friction and none of that. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back to where it's supposed to be, 0.98 at least. Perfect. It's still going super, super fast. That's fine. Let me go ahead into my uniform field and then cut that 2.5. Okay, they still feel a little bit quick. 0.2, and also my tangent speed, I'm going to lower that because it's way too much. On my overall speed, I'm going to put it from 1 to 0.1. Remember that the sense of scale on these shots is going to be given to you if there's no point of reference like this one, that's just against gray. The sense of scale is going to come from the speed of the whole of movement of the overall group. So if this group moves very quickly, it will feel like bacteria or ants or something really close to your camera. If you start slowing it down, then it starts feeling like it's further away. That's going to happen a lot with, that's everything in 3D, but you feel a lot with fluids as well. So here we go. I still feel them a little bit too quick from left to right. There we go. All right. I think that's good. It likes a little bit of the noisy pattern. Noisy pattern, no, but the changes of some of them. So probably my tangent speed, I can, bump it up a little. Let me just put that to 3. Okay, we'll deal with the rest after a while. But right now we do have whatever the amount of particles or birds that he wanted. We get them to move from one point to the other, similar to what he's doing on the video. So we got, that part is being taken care of. So I'm gonna save that, and I gotta say, Jesus, this guy's gonna come soon. I know that I also wanted to give him some sort of choice as far as the size of the overall thing is taken care of, but I also wanted to give you like subgroups and break up that shape just in case I move the camera. Remember that the shot at the end pans out and you start seeing the edges of the group. See, here you start seeing the edges. So I need to hurry because the guy is coming. So how do I do that? How do I draw that? Because right now I know that if I hit play here, I get all these birds moving in that direction. It's all very straight line. That's not what it looks like on the video. So how do I fix that? Don't worry about it. There is another option. So go to Window, go open your Hypershade. I'm trying to say, open your Hypershade right here. I'm gonna make a new Lambert, and I'm gonna throw that onto my emitter here, my plane that is emitting my particles, and I'm gonna color it with a texture. I'm going to be using let's say, simple noise. Here it is. And let's just think, well, I'm going to just tell you right away. We're going to use this texture for emission. So we're going to tell Maya to use, the emitter, to use a texture and to use the color of this image to determine where the particles are born. And now that's going to help me break up some of these things. And I can specify if I want the white to be the criteria for emission and the black for no emission, or the opposite. So right now, just same thing as we did with the alien, but the alien we did it just for color, remember the previous lesson? So just the same thing we did with the alien, we're going to use the texture on this geometry as a way to pre-visualize what this thing is going to be working on the emitter. If I don't do that, then I have to imagine things. I have to imagine what the texture will look like on the geometry, and then hence what it will look on the emitter, and that's just ridiculous. So I'd rather have it on the plane here to be able to look at it, and then I can tweak it, because I need to change a couple of things. I'm going to be using a purling noise, which is faster, and the same thing pretty much, is better. I'm going to be probably increasing a little bit of my amplitude. You just play with this texture as you want, all right? That's not what I want. Let me see about the frequency. Depends. You see the black? I'm going to use the black as the areas of no birds. Okay, like it was an alpha channel pretty much. So here we go. That's fine. Okay, and then, like I said, you play with this as you wish. Just do whatever you want with this. Let me see if I can. Okay. And it's not going to be like pure white is emitting and pure black is not emitting. There's also obviously going to take into consideration. It's going to interpolate. Sorry, between the two colors. So grays are going to be less birds, and so yeah, that's pretty much it. Because I don't see so many gaps on the reference, then I'm not going to make too many too big big spots of black. So I'm going to keep it a little bit like that. There we go. Okay, perfect. Again, we can play with that texture later. That's just fine. So we have it there. That's what matters. So last week we took the emitter and then we plugged the texture onto the color channel. Remember that we did it from here. We clicked on that and then we plugged that texture. Because I already created this texture, it's right here, and I want to use that one, I don't want to make a new one. I'm just going to grab it with the middle mouse and I'm going to drag it and I'm going to drop it here where it says texture rate. Once I do that, you can see that the connection has been made. But you won't see any changes just yet as far as the emission goes because it's not activated. It is connected, but it's not activated, so I'm going to enable it. When you hit emit from dark, it's going to take the black as the point of emission. Just like that. All right, so let's see. Perfect. You can see that right away I have some gaps. It looks a bit more natural. The edge is a little bit more broken up. I'm going to jump back to my shot camera. Let me just hide the polygon. And there we go. It looks a bit more natural. Let's just see where they move. That's good. Definitely more natural. All right, so the guy's coming. I got my texture. I got my left to right. I got my amount of birds. I got the size of the emitter. I can now play with the texture and give him gaps and things like that. You can even paint, a texture by hand if you want it. So I think we're good, right? I think we have everything that we wanted. We haven't taken into account the height. Let's do that. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I look at this from the side, okay, I get that. A razor sharp edge. That's no good. So I'm going to tweak that. So I get my plane, I get my emitter right here. And the emitter, how do I give it a bit of a, distribution in the y-axis? Excuse me. You're not going to, you could deform the plane, but that's not really what you want. You just want to be able to use the plane as the emitter, but kind of tell them, well, why, is there a way for you guys to be born above and below some certain distance and then just place yourselves around that? And the answer is yes. You have an attribute here called min distance and max distance. When they're both set to 0, they're born right on the surface, right on the edge of the surface. I'm sorry. But if I specify a min distance, we'll have to measure that with the grid probably. So let's just look at it from the front. This plane is crooked. From the side. Well, from the side view will work. I could probably, we should fix these rotations on this plane because I don't like that. Let's just grab the plane. Yeah, I have some crazy rotations right there. So in X, I don't need anything. And in Z, I don't need anything. So why does it look like that? Well, the plane got, straightened up, but these are the particles. So let's just rewind and play. Perfect, that's more like it. All right, so I do have, and if you look through the camera, it should look probably the same. Yeah, there they are. Okay, that's good. So let's go to the right view and place them again. All right, so here are my particles. So we were talking about the distribution in Y. So I just wanted to do that just to get a measurement. So I can see the 1 unit right here. Okay, it should be fine. So I'm going to grab my emitter and I'm going to tell it, all right, you have access to the attributes here, but for some reason, some things I just want to work them on the attribute editor. They're easier to find. There you go. So I'm going to specify a minimum distance of -1 and a maximum distance of 1. And it's going to take and place them randomly in between that. All right, so let's see. That doesn't work. Oh, that didn't work. But let me just double check something. Let's just try a crazy number. Actually, 1 second. Let me just make sure here that I have everything is fine. Right, let's just try higher and see what happens. Okay. So it is working. You can see it is working, but the numbers are not high enough. I was under the impression that these units will match my Maya units, but they don't. But that's not a problem. You can just go ahead and say, let's say 100 and then negative 100. You just look at it from the perspective view. It is interesting because I can see that the plane is turning into a circle, which is kind of ridiculous. All right, no worries. Let me just grab my plane and double check it. Okay. Yeah, it seems like this thing is just moved in all directions. Got my scales here. My rotation is fine. Yeah, well. Let's just grab this in a minute. And that's good that these things happen when we're recording. I don't like when everything is just smooth sailing. So back to 0 and 0. All right, now we got that. That's fine. I just want to test what it looks like if I just put 100 units as the max distance. Yeah. All right. Okay, so that could be happening because of, let's just check the normals. Well, the normal should be fine because it's a pretty simple plane. But it could be happening because I don't have any speed in Y. And the normal speed is up to 0. Let me just try, put that in there. And then hit that. Okay, you can see that once I put this normal speed to something, then it starts taking into consideration these values a little bit better. It's just, well, my logic. Okay, I don't know for sure what it works. You know what Maya is thinking or not thinking. But my logic is that if I have the normal speed set to 0, it's almost like Maya is ignoring the normal of the surface. And for the min-max distance, the normal is important because that's what it's using. So let me just see what that looks like with negative 10. Yeah, all right, so that's more like it. That's more like what I wanted. And now you can tell that 10 is a lot. What we wanted originally is what it is. So negative 1 as a min distance and 1 as a max distance. We just want to give it a bit of height. There we go. That's what we wanted. Perfect. So troubleshooting, right? There's always good to discuss it a little bit. Troubleshooting in these cases, you can kind of use always, try to always refer to what I'm doing. You see, I'm not planning these classes. You know, I'm not recording. I don't have a list of attributes or things like that, especially not for the very simple stuff. But things happen all the time. They happen to me. They will happen to you. They happen to anybody. But don't panic. Don't freak out. Don't start blaming Maya. Don't start cursing. Don't start, thinking. Just take it easy and just work through the steps and think. Well, if the max distance is a distance of the away and above and below an emitter or away and from the center of an emitter, how the Maya will know what is up and what is down? They need the normal of the surface. And if I'm doing those values and it's a simple thing and it's not working, it's giving me a circle, it's just because Maya doesn't know. Or even worse, Maya is using the tangent because that's what I had. I have a tangent speed of 3. So Maya, if I start setting these numbers and Maya is giving me a circle, it means because it's changing only in this direction, in one direction. So it's changing it's not changing in Y, but it should. So don't worry about it. Then just think, well, let me just look at the normal of this thing and put it to something and see if it changes. And there we go. So troubleshooting is a very important thing in effects. Don't, I see people that, freak out very quickly and start cursing and blaming. You see why I knew this wouldn't work and start getting expressions. Easy. Take it easy. Everything is fine. So here we go. So we have a bit of a height, and the guy, I can see him, he's on the corner and he's, entering my work area here. So fuck, I gotta get it ready. There we go. So we have everything we need. All the controls at least that we specified at the beginning. So camera 1, again, I will hide my polygon. And once you look at it through this almost like a top view, this change that we just did of the min and max distance, it might not seem like anything right now, but once you start rendering this at some point, then you will definitely need it, right? So you want to have some birds below and some above, and shadows or whatever, self-shadowing and things like that. So it will definitely work. So let's just recap and see what this looks like. I'm not a big fan of the tangent speed because it kind of gives me motion at the beginning, but then it just kind of stands still. So I'm gonna get rid of it. There we go. Perfect. So here we go. And there they move. But yes, they're lacking a bit of internal motion. They kind of all move at the same pace. So I'm gonna give you a trick. Remember that I said the uniform feel, and it sounded kind of weird, like I had an affair with the uniform feel. Like that. I said like the uniform feel was my favorite feel. Well, I kind of like it because it has a very cool, interesting thing. The Maya feel, the gravity field, let's say, okay, the gravity field that moves particles up and down. It can also move particles left and right, and from the seat. It's almost like a uniform field. So I could have used a gravity field for this to move it the way this thing is moving. But I tend to avoid that, and you will see in other examples when things are moving from top to bottom or doing rain and things like that, I also try to avoid the gravity, and I use a uniform field instead. And the reason why is because the uniform field takes into consideration the mass of the particle. So particles with higher mass will move different than those with less mass. And that gives you a bit of a more natural motion. And that won't happen with the gravity field. The gravity field will take everyone the same, no matter what the weight is. So you will think, well, let's just see how we can avoid having all those guys moving at the same pace, which looks unnatural, and give them a little bit of a variation on the speed. And that can be achieved with the mass, randomizing the mass when the particle is born. At the moment, the mass of every particle is the same, it's 1. That's just what Maya gives you by default. How do you visualize these things? How do I know that? How would you know that once the time comes? There is a very cool particle type, okay? And we haven't talked about particle types yet. We only use points. So I select my particles, I'm on the particle shape, and I'm right now in the render attributes, I see that I'm using points, but the list is longer. There is one very good one that is good for debugging, which is called the numeric. When I hit it, don't worry about it. You're gonna get a whole bunch of numbers on the screen. You can barely read it. Don't worry about it. This is showing the particle ID. Let's say that this is the identification number of each particle. Each particle has a different number. There's no 2 particles with the same number. And because there's so many of them, and the numbers are quite long, they're on top of each other. It looks kind of messy like this. But you can here ask to show you other things, not just the particle ID. You can erase this and just say, for example, show me the mass of the particle, and here they are. And because there's so many of them, it's kind of rough to tell what's happening. You can specify, for example, the selected particles, and there's no particle selected. If you do this, you're not going to be able to select them. You need to be able to right-click on them. So right-click on the particle, select particle, and then you can start grabbing some particles. So you could grab a group here. Basically, once you click, you're always going to hit pretty much one particle, and you can see that the mass of all of them is 1. And you can even just rewind and hit just once. It'll be easier, right? So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Everyone has the same mass. If you wanted to see the particle ID, there we go. So each particle has a different number. All right, so let's back to mass. And yeah, everyone has the same, that's why they all move the same. So I'm going to go ahead and randomize that. I'm going to go back to point. I'm going to go to the mass. And we're going to do our first expression together here. And yeah, don't worry about it. It's nothing. But expressions are very simple. Expressions come in two different flavors, actually three. One of them are expressions that are being executed when the particle is born. And those are called creation expressions. So if you right click on this section here, don't right click on the name because nothing will happen. Right click on the empty spot here. So you get creation expressions that are being executed just once when the particle is born. That's it. Then you get runtime expressions, which are expressions that are executed in every frame. And they could happen before or after the forces are applied. That's what it says dynamics. So before or after the forces are applied, you can specify where you want your expression to happen. Because I don't want the mass of the particle to change over time. I just want them to be born. Think of the size of these birds. They're not all the same size. You get pigeons and you get old ones, and you get fat ones, and you get skinny ones. So you get, they're all different at the beginning. So I just want, when they're born, to pick a different weight, let's say, each one of them. So I'm going to make an expression on runtime. On creation. So I'm going to copy this because I'm lazy. You could copy and paste it. All right? Or you can simply, and that's the easiest way, once you start getting more used to mail scripting, you don't have to copy paste if you don't want. You can just do mass. That's it. The mass is equal, okay, when they're born, to a random number, right? So this is a random expression, and the random expression goes in between parentheses, and you have to specify a minimum and a maximum number. So let's say, just for testing, 1 and 2. You can put one of these guys to finish. Hit create, and if nothing red comes out down here, then your expression was taken correctly. There's no typo. And why you say, but why do you put mass in, how do Maya knows the mass of what? Well, because I'm already here. I'm already working on the particle shape. And Maya will fill it out for me. The next time I open this, it will be complete. And you will see now. I'll show you. I close this. I open it. And you see, Maya filled in the gap for me. So that's an easier way, to type quickly. So let's see what this looks like. Let me just go back to, okay, perfect. So let's see what this looks like. I'm recording this thing in HD, and this is supposed to be very sharp. It could be noisy, but I do see the difference already. We can amplify it just to see if it's working. So let's say 1 and 22. Then you can definitely see it. There are points that are moving a lot faster, or 22 times faster than the others. You see? And ones are moving very slowly. So this tells you what's supposed to happen. The little points moving quickly are the lighter ones. Think of them as pigeons and skinny ones. Those guys probably move a little bit faster. Well, I know because I've been in this so long that I know some people say, well, are you crazy? Because if the big one probably has bigger wings and flaps faster, goddamn it. I'm not talking about the physics of flying of these birds. I'm just saying, man, if the point is lighter, then it should move faster. That's it. You gave it all logic and everything. But that's what I think. If it's a lighter one, meaning the ones with mass of 1, for example, those are the ones that move faster. And as I get towards the mass of 22, they move slower. This is something that shouldn't be so noticeable once you're ready, once you place it under your shot. So I think 1 and 2 should be more than enough. You can probably go 1 and 3. That's not something, like I said, you should be able to pinpoint really quickly with the eye. Your eye won't say, I can see one moving 3 times faster than the other. No. This works as a group, as a field. This works as a field that, if you have them all moving at the same speed, then I will tell you there's something wrong with this shot and I don't know what it is. And I think that's one of the key features or the key aspects of a good effects TD is just to have a good eye for effects. I think that's more valuable than many things. That's why you see me, for example, after I've been doing this. Let's say that the first time I opened Maya was 16 years ago, um, and I still go to the movies as much as possible. My lifestyle right now allows me to go pretty much every day, but I used to go before, twice or three times a week, and I try to watch as many things as I can. I enjoy it. I'm not saying that it's a burden for me, but I try to watch as much as possible because I feel that that's my brain and my eye training every day. That's a gym for my eyes. Um, I want to know and try to pinpoint quickly what's wrong. And once you start getting into more management positions, into more of a supervising role, that's your job. Your job is to sit with your guys, look at what they're working on, and give them positive and constructive feedback. And not only tell them that's I hate it when the supervisor goes that doesn't work, fix it, but doesn't even tell you what he thinks is wrong with it. You should offer also an option or at least an advice. So that's just coming from that training your eyes. So it should be a bit of a you shouldn't be able to perceive that little variation in mass, but if you know it's there, you know it's going to feel better. And overall, yeah, I think it's fine. I can see some of them are moving faster. To be honest, because I know what I'm doing, I know that one of them are moving three times faster, and I find it too much. I'm going to go back to 1 and 2. Every time you change an expression, hit edit, right? Otherwise, it won't take the change. So here we go. Perfect. All right. So I think that's more like it. Once you do it at home, you can focus on an area, and you will see some of them are moving a bit faster than the others. So I like it. That looks pretty cool. But with all that, I'm going to save my scene, and I know that my supervisor is behind me. He's listening to everything that I'm saying, and God damn it, he's here. Let's go ahead and turn this that we did so far in the class into a little bit of a system that maybe even he can change. And if you manage to do that, and I've done it before in some of my shows before that I worked on, if you hand over your mouse and your keyboard to the supervisor, or a supervisor is, I'm assuming, if I say supervisor, is someone that already knows how to use Maya, and he might want to take it away from you, your mouse and your keyboard, to test it himself. So that's not really cool. Cool is when you have someone from an advertising agency or someone who's a director who's not really into 3D, and you tell him, you know what, sir, why don't you sit with me? Here you go. Here's the mouse and the keyboard. These are the values. Why don't you tweak it? Tweak it, and then I'll go ahead and make sure that it gets propagated and it gets done correctly. But I'll give you the freedom to try it. They will feel like $1,000,000, and they will make you feel like $1,000,000. Believe me, that's going to be the best thing for them. So how do I do that? How do I turn this little simple thing into a little bit of a quick tool? I'm saying tool because I have no other word to use. Setup, nothing simpler, but it's very simple. And that's what I want for this course, to be simple. And with that, we're going to finish for this lesson. I'm going to create a locator. And you may have seen me do this before if you're taking my other courses, but hey, let's do it again. So this locator here, I'm going to name it master control. Hell, if you want to suck it up to your client, you can call it client control, or put the name of the guy, and then, depends on how far you want to go up his ass. But master control. And on this master control, we're going to add a few attributes. And keep something in mind. Everything that you put in here, people will touch. People will tweak. So, there are things that you might want and things that you may not want. So be careful with that. What I mean by that is that don't put too much, because they're going to be messing with it. And they might break it, and they might call you to fix it. That's not what you want. You want to simplify your life, not to add more trouble to it. Perfect. So in this, I'm going to be adding some attributes. So I'm going to modify, I'm going to add attribute. By the way, have you noticed that everything that I'm doing in Maya 2017 is the same thing as Maya 2013? Have you seen that? There you go. Keep that in mind. Cool. So attribute name. So let's say, for example, how can you call it? And depends on what you're going to be doing with this tool. If it's for you, you put any name you want of the attribute. But if you want someone to use it, like I said, if you want to hand this over to your supervisor or the art director or whatever, a guy whose background is on photographing and painting and something else other than 3D, then you got to put a descriptive name or something. So you can put, for example, And correct me, and I apologize because as you know, English is not my first language, and if the word flock is not the right one, then I apologize or whatever. But we can put, for example, well, let's just cover my back and put swarm size, for example. Um, I put the first letter in. I use camel casing, what it's called, which is the first letter of the first word is lowercase, and then the first word letter of each word after that on uppercase. That's the proper way to write down things. And also Maya will understand this and put a space in between, so it will look cool. So the swarm size is a number that shouldn't go below 0, and it shouldn't go, well, don't give him a limit because we don't know what he wants. And the default for this, we said it was going to be, well, let's say 150,000 birds. I can't remember the exact number that we used. It was less than this one. And then you hit add. And you can see right here, an attribute shows up on my list that's called swarm size. You can see they put both things with capital K's. It looks nice. And he put a space in the middle. So that's perfect. Swarm size. Great. We also said we can call it swarm speed. All right. Well, I didn't talk about something on this attribute, but I didn't do it wrong, so that's fine. I'm going to talk it on this one. I misspelled this. Swarm speed. Here on data type, you get vectors, integers, booleans, strings, and these numeric things. These are the type of numbers that this attribute is going to expect. So for now, floats are what you want. Floats are just numbers. Vectors are, it's a vector. 3 values, x, y, and z. Integers is well, I'm not going to get into this at the moment, but you get booleans are 1 and zeros, you get text, you get all the things. What you want to place is numbers. I don't want to get you too confused in the beginning. Later, we'll be using everything, so don't worry about it. So floats for you want. This is for the swarm speed. Same thing. You don't want anything below 0, no maximum. And I don't know, let's set a default. I can't remember the value of the uniform field, but we'll tweak it later. That doesn't matter. We'll just put it to 2. All right, so we get the amount of birds. We get the speed where they fly. We can put here, for example, emitter scale in x. And I'm going to copy this. Meter, let me just think a little bit more. Because we put a emitter that we might confuse the guy. If we're talking about the swarm, okay, so we can put here, it's better to put swarm. Let's just say, I'm just thinking in terms of if I'm going to hand this over to someone who doesn't know any of this, right? Yeah, we can probably put, let's just say width, okay? And again, minimum number should be 0, no maximum, I don't know, whatever, a value of 3 for the width. Hit that, I'm gonna put swarm height. Hit add. And then also the swarm length. What do I put 10? I'm just trying to describe in my mind a rectangle, but again, that doesn't matter. I'm not doing anything special. All I'm doing right now is just adding attributes for my control, so later I can go ahead and connect them. And then we're gonna start making changes. So right now, these are things that I probably want to tweak. So I want to tweak the amount of birds, the speed, the width, the height of the length of the overall group. We can put, for example, swarm gap frequency. Okay. We can also control, we have the height, the speed, we get the gaps in the middle. Let me just think what else. We can, for example, put another one if you want for swarm. Let's say, and that's probably will be called different way, but you can pull bird speed. Let me just think. I'm just thinking an attribute that I can use to randomize the mass. of the attribute. Variation, probably. Bird speed variation, or because it's just, yeah, swarm speed variation. That's just the variation in the speed of each one of those birds, roughly. Okay, I think that's a good one. What else did we add here? We got those. I think we're fine. And if we're not, we could go back and add more afterwards. Perfect. There we go. So we got all those things. If you don't want to move this locator, then you can get rid of some of the attributes because this list looks kind of long. And this is something that the client should select and just tweak numbers. Then get rid of some of the things you don't want. So you get window, general editors, channel control, or here you go. My channel control, I can hide things for what I have selected. So I don't need these guys to rotate this thing. So I'm just going to hide it. And translation and scale, I don't need them to scale it. Why do we need to scale it? And I don't care. Let's just hide all those things. There we go. So that way he has something very simple to tweak, right? That's what it is. At the moment, this won't do any changes for us. Just save it. I don't want to miss this. Perfect. So it won't do any changes. Things are, just exactly the same. But let's go ahead and start connecting things. So I know that the swarm size is the amount of birds. And the amount of birds is connected to my particle shape max count. It's 106,945. I like that number. So I'm just go ahead and place it on my master control. No, I don't have to. Let's just go ahead and connect it. Let's connect the master control swarm size attribute to the particle shape. Okay, one more time. The particle shape max count. You can do this with an expression, but expressions are a bit slower. And don't talk in fractions of a second. That shouldn't really matter at the stage. You can do it any way you want. But if you can, then just go ahead and do direct connection, what it's called. So select your locator, go to Window, General Editors, Connection Editor, this one right here. And here you have then your locator, which it has all the attributes right here. Then make sure you select the shape node. Okay. By what I mean by selecting the shape node, you can do it here, as you can see. But if you select the particle, you hit the down arrow on your keyboard. Then you go to the shape node and then reload that in here. And all you need to do is then select swarm size and then look for on the list here for the max count. So let's just find it together because I don't know what it is. Max count. There we go. You can see it turns yellow because it's a direct connection. And right now it says 150,000. What I wanted was 106,945. I kind of like that number. I don't know why. And again, 106,945. So picture your client just placing those numbers and getting a feedback right away. Perfect. Just looks just the same. All right, so the swarm speed, that's what overall magnitude of this field right here. And it's set to 0.1, so go ahead and put 0.1. And let's connect it. So one more time. I didn't have to close this window, but okay, so I got my field. I'm going to roll it on the right. And I'm going to get my swarm speed, and I'm going to tweak, connect it to the magnitude. Magnitude, there you go. Perfect. The next attribute on the list is the swarm width, height, and length. And the width and the height, okay, sorry, the width and the length is dictated by the size of this polygon shape. So basically what I need to do is grab this, and right now I have 44. This is ridiculous. You don't have any size in Y, but I have 44 and 27. So I'm going to round this number so they look nicer. Okay, perfect. 44 and 27. So the width of this is going to be 27. And the length, we said 44, I think. 44. Okay, that's funny. On the length of it, it's not taking anything higher than 10. So you say, what the hell, what happened? What did I do? Then Maya this and Maya that. No worry about it. You can select your control and you're going to modify, you're going to edit an attribute that for some reason has a maximum limit. Probably I made a mistake there, I don't know. So that's on the length, I believe. For some reason it has a maximum of 10. I don't want any maximum. Then close it. So right now I can go ahead and put 44, and it will take 44. So the swarm width, let me just make sure I have my polygon plane selected. I'm going to load it in here, and we're going to find the scale. It shows us gray because we're trying to connect a float with a vector, but if you open this, then you get each channel separately. So the width is going to be the scale in Z. My length is going to be my scale in X. And the height is not the scale in Y. It will show you right now. So perfect. We get those two numbers done correctly. And you can test if this is working by putting, instead of 44, put 4, and you can see it works. Perfect. And if you can rewind and play, and everything is the same. So save it again. Beautiful. We're missing the height. And the height, if you remember, we did it with the max and min distance right here. Yeah. So basically what I want is to select my emitter here and just be able to connect one number from the locator and place it in here. Now, why didn't I put max control, min distance, and max distance? We could do that. That's just a choice you have to make. You can give more control or less control. If you're anticipating this thing to be, what I did here was just to put a min and max number and let Maya figure it out. And that's fine with me for this particular case. What I'm thinking is if my user gives me a number, which is 1, okay, then I will just use that with an expression here, to place that number that he gives me and just use my min and max that number, right? But if you want them to specify a particular distance below the plane and above the plane, then you need to give two separate controls. It's up to you. I'm going to show you both ways. If I do it like this, with just one number, right? So I need to go ahead and say, I need to find a way to connect that number with this one. I can connect it to the max distance directly with a direct connection. So we can do that. So we can go Window, General, Connection Editor. Okay. And you can see that my swarm height is right here. I'm going to grab my emitter, reload it here, and let's look for min and max distance. Okay, I'm looking. Probably you found it before me. Okay, min and max distance. So I can set my max distance to the number that the client is giving me, but I cannot do it to the min distance because it's going to be 1 as well. So at least I can get to this point. What I can do with this one is just an expression. I can right click on it, I can create an expression, and I can say that the minimum distance, okay, is equal to, I'm going to change this, okay, to the max distance multiplied. Sorry that I have a new keyboard that is a Spanish keyboard. Everything is in the wrong place. There we go. Multiply by -1. That's one way to do it. Okay, so let me just see. Min distance is equal to the emitter1 max distance. Multiplied by -1, and it's giving me both numbers to 0. So we'll see now in a second. Don't worry about it. Okay, it could be because it's just this number here. My height is 0. So if I put my height to 1, I can go back to my emitter, and you can see that I have 1 and -1. I could have done both with an expression, but like I said, I'm trying to minimize the number of expressions that I'm using. So this is one way to do it. So that way your customer, and I can go ahead and rewind. Let me just save it. and hit play, and it's perfect. It's perfect, 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 perfect. That's exactly what we want. And we're done actually, I think, right? Let me just, I don't know, if just the gap frequency, the variation we're gonna do now. But let me just recap on this. That way your customer can put just one number. And don't worry, and he doesn't have to worry about the rest. If you see that he needs control over the top and the bottom, you see it looks fine, it looks perfect. Just the same. With one number. So that's a way for him to worry less about it. But if he says, you know what, man, no, I want more birds at the top than to the bottom because right now there's something, the ground is too close. Okay, let's do that one as well. So let's go ahead and grab the control. We're going to have to add one more value. So we're going to have to modify, add an attribute, and we're going to call this one swarm min height, for example. And he's going to have a value. It doesn't have a minimum because it could go below 0. So I don't want to get into that problem. No maximum and no default. I don't care. Well, let's say default -1. And hit OK. Okay, so you get your swarm min height. So if you want to do the other option is just to have him choose the min and the max height, then it's simple. You just grab that and just connect it. General editors, connection editor. So here's my locator with my swarm min height. And if you grab the emitter, and you can load it here, but if you try to connect it straight up to the min distance, I'm sorry, you'll see what happens. 1 second, let me just locate it. Just give me 1 minute because it might look gray because it's already being used. Okay, here you go. So they're gray because they're already being used, they're already connected to something else. If I try to connect it to the min distance, it might break the connection, hopefully, from the expression, and just stick to that. Let me just double check that. And yeah, it turned yellow, or well, light yellow. So that means that it broke the connection of the expression that I had, and now it's using what the control says. So that allows the guy to say, well, yeah, I want the min distance to be 1, but I want the height to be 3. And this is not taking anything higher than 1. It could have a limit as well, probably. So let's tweak that. So modify, edit attribute, and the swarm height got turned with the maximum as well. So I don't want that. So let's just say 3. So now you can see that the emitter, it has a minimum distance of 1 and a maximum of 3. And that will look like that. Perfect. So he can choose now, has even more control. Depends on what the customer is like. If he's a computer savvy guy, then he might want this. If he's just a regular Joe, normal person, then 1 number should be enough. But here, perfect. He can choose what goes below the plane and above the plane. Perfect. All right, so we're missing now is just a couple of things. Is the variation, the swarm variation. Let me just check here. We got the swarm speed variation. These attributes in this order, to change them, to be honest, I don't think you can. Let me just see. To change the order of them. But of course, that wasn't something that I expected to do. Adding another attribute. So it looks ugly, but that's just that. The speed variation comes from an expression on the particles, remember? It comes from an expression on the particles right here. It's a random between 1 and 2. So what can we do here? What is the easiest way? You cannot connect it with a direct connection because you're using an expression, right? The easiest way, okay, that I will show you how to do this thing is just to keep your expression just the way you had it before, because this is a very simple expression, but you might have something more complicated later. So you don't want to go ahead and having to tweak your expression too much and having to put controls for every variable in your expression, because your customer is not gonna enjoy the thing. The whole point of this is that he enjoys this. He's not gonna enjoy having you have to teach him everything. This is something that you should be handing over to him or emailing the scene, and there you go, man. There you got everything you need to make it look your way, and then send it back to me when it's done. So what I'll do is easier. I will just go ahead here and then multiply what I have, okay, by the attribute that he will be using. So think of that. What he's going to be doing is almost like a volume dial. So if he puts 1, is exactly what you had before. If he puts 2, is double what you had before, okay, and so on and so forth. So and basically, it's very simple. What you need to do is just type the name of the control. So it's called the master control, and put that and the name of the attribute. And that's what the thing, I forgot the name. Okay, no worries. So what we'll do is just grab this guy, and it should be right here. So it's swarm speed variation. So I'm gonna copy it. See what I did? I grabbed this with the expression editor open. I looked for the attribute, and it gave me the whole name right here. So it's easier. So I'm gonna go back to my particle shape. Make sure that you push down or select this. Well, right now it's not doing it in this Maya. That's one of the differences. Before it was easier. I can now just go ahead, go back, creation expression. Okay, perfect. Then go back here and then multiply it by that. Hit edit and everything is fine. So let's see if it's true. So right now he can grab this. Swarm speed variation is 0, then you shouldn't have any variation. Let's just go back to camera 1. Let's not show the polygons. Let's grab this. Okay, it's normal. That's perfect. You see what Maya is telling me right now down here? And there's something that Maya doesn't like. There you go. I hope it stays there. It says there is a problem because the particle mass is 0 and it shouldn't be 0. You say, well, why, how come it's 0? Well, of course. If my locator right now, remember the expression, it says it was a mass, it was a random number between 1 and 2, but it's multiplied by whatever number you have here. And if I have 0, everything multiplied by 0 is 0. And particles with 0 mass is terrible in Maya. It doesn't like it. So I think that's a good sign, actually, it's working. So let's go ahead and put the variation to 1. And rewind and hit play. And it's perfect. It's what I had before. How do we know for sure? Well, I know because of the math tells me this, but if you want to test it, put 10. Now you get, a variation of 10. So you get particles that are moving 10 times faster than the others, you see? You can kind of tell. So it's perfect. So that's what I wanted. Now, one thing that you can do to cover your back, because of the logic, I have to think like my client. So if he says, I don't, you leave it at 1, right? And he said, no, but I don't want to see, I want to see with no variation. And he puts 0. Now it's going to start giving errors to him. He doesn't going to like that. And you can see it's actually slow. So we need to think of something. In the easiest way, okay? The easiest way is just not to give him a choice of going below 0. So this is a good opportunity to use a minimum value on that attribute. So I'm going to grab, 1 second, let me just pause my, there you go. I'm going to modify my attribute for swarm speed variation. I'm going to give him a minimum of 1. Sorry. Okay, it doesn't let me put a minimum value of 1. Okay, that's odd. Let me just think 1 minute. Let me just try. I don't know. Let me just try something. It takes this, and now it takes that one. You see, debugging. Don't freak out. It just probably doesn't like the fact that it had a 0 by default here, and it didn't want to take the 1. That's all. Because Maya couldn't understand how the minimum could be more than the maximum. But that's not a problem. You see, you fix it quickly. All right. So I think that should be fine. So now, if I put here 0, it will stay to 1. You can see, put 0, hit enter, and you get sent back to 1. That way it won't break for him. And it will have a little bit of a variation. If he just complains, then you tweak it later on the expression. But I think it's easier at this point. The last thing missing is the gap frequency. And the gap frequency is coming from oh, Jesus Christ. I'm trying to hit 6 on my keyboard to show me the texture mode. One second. It's just probably my keyboard's running out of battery, but it shouldn't be. No, my spacebar is not working. No worries. We'll save it. Because I'm lazy, I'm just going to go back to my perspective. You don't want to reopen Maya. Now it's working here. Let me see if my... Okay, now it works. Okay, it was a little hiccup. All right, so the gap frequency is coming from the frequency of this texture, remember? So we're going to go to the rendering editors. We're going to open the hypershade. And once it's up, it's right here, sorry. We want to go to the texture, which is right here. And I want to connect the frequency value, probably, to that number, just to give him a little bit of a sense that he can control that as well. Perfect. So same way. You grab the window connection editor. Perfect. Here you will just select your texture. It's easier if you do it like this, and you reload it. And now look for the gap frequency, and then just look for this texture frequency, which is right here. It's normal to go to 0. Because remember, the master control is set to 0. So now I think it was 9.4. Perfect. 9.4. But now you can tweak it here. You can try 4. You can try 6. You can try 26. And he can play with this. I'm telling you, he's going to love it. He's going to love to be able to work like this. And yes, I'm explaining these things to you slowly, we're taking our time. But I can assure you, you can put everything together in 20 minutes. You can send him for a coffee, you can, something. Show him a funny video of a cat DJing, right? Like that movie. While you do this quick thing and everything will be fine. So there we go, perfect. So here it is. I'm thinking there's something missing. Just give me 1 second. We haven't added the direction of the swarm, and that could be fun. Well, that could be interesting. And you know what would be even more fun? If you guys do it as an assignment. There you go. So your assignment for this class is to replicate this. Give me that shot. So locate it in the episode 1 of this video. Locate it, give me all the controls, but add the one that I didn't put, which is going to be the direction of this swarm. Determine what is dictating the direction. I'm telling you, it's the field. There's a few attributes there. So find out what it is, give me some control over that as well, and then show me some results. Sounds good? I think it's a good time to stop. I hope you have questions. Well, if you don't have questions because I was very clear, then perfect. But if you do have questions, just keep them there, and then we'll meet soon probably on Sunday. Today, I'm saying Sunday, you will be watching this any day. Today, okay, September 17, 2016, which is a Saturday. Hopefully, maybe tomorrow we can meet up. I'm going to put it on the Facebook group. Remember that there is a Facebook group for this. Well, I cannot show it right now because I don't want to log in, but just check your emails. Check your emails and you'll see. And then perfect. Then we'll see you on the next class. Thank you very, very much. And well, have fun with this one. Goodbye.